So if, not that this would happen, but let's say that the mosque facility was built and they decided to move out of town and they sold it to a Catholic church. That CUP that's approved runs with the land, and any subsequent users of that facility, as long as they comply with these conditions of approval, they don't have to go through the CUP process again. We do have provisions in our code that allow us to revoke a CUP if the applicant is not in compliance with their conditions of approval. And I can tell you that in my experience working not only for the city of Temecula but other cities, where I've never been involved in a revocation where it actually got all the way to revocation, because that's kind of like the death penalty, where if you threaten someone's livelihood, or in this case an institution, by saying that if you don't comply with your conditions of approval, we're going to revoke it, they generally fall in line, and we take those things very seriously. The question was, why did we do a mitigated negative declaration as opposed to an EIR? Based on the initial study checklist, which is required to be prepared as part of the California Environmental Quality Act review, we determined that in all areas, not just traffic, but air quality, noise, hydrology, cultural resources, that in most areas the project generated no measurable impact, or in areas where there was an impact, those impacts could be mitigated. Therefore, the mitigated negative declaration was the appropriate vehicle for CEQA clearance. For comparison's sake, the Grace Presbyterian Baptist Church, they also prepared a mitigated negative declaration. And actually, the Calvary Baptist Church was determined to be categorically exempt under Class 32, which is infill development. They did not have to go through that process. One of the questions, one of the comments was that this facility was taller than the Baptist church. Just for comparison's sake, the height of the crescent and star will be 43 feet. The height of the steeple is 55 feet at the Baptist church. Their expansion at the Baptist church, which is their multi-purpose facility, is 33 feet tall, and the mosque would be 33.5 feet tall. So, so comparable. Also, in addition to the infrastructure improvements they will be constructing, they are also required to pay development impact fees, which go into a fund that the city uses to do system-wide improvements to the roadway network. That'll be in addition to their actual improvements that they have to construct. Issue of eminent domain. The applicant is providing their the right-of-way and will be constructing the ultimate improvements, so there would be no necessity for eminent domain. I believe the right-of-way along Nicholas Road to widen Nicholas Road out has already been acquired, so that would not be necessary. I think that's all I had. I guess one thing, just, you know, the comment was that they were given preferential treatment. I think they would probably beg to differ because they've been in this process for about 2.5 years. So they've been very patient, and we have rigorously reviewed this application to make sure that all impacts that will be generated by the project will be mitigated. So if I've missed anything.
Actually, good. I only had one other thing that I had on my list too. There was a couple questions with public noticing, whether it was done correctly, the traffic control was thrown on top of us quickly. Can you address that?
Yes, the question was that we didn't first off on the traffic study that we didn't analyze the correct peak period. I think what it may be confusing is that most people believe that the peak period is you know, when you have the most traffic during the day. The peak analysis is done based on what the project peak is, and then you analyze the traffic on the roadway network during that peak period. Their peak period is basically between 1 and 4 on Fridays and before the rush hour. So to have analyzed and having gone through that intersection, the traffic at Nicholas and Winchester is probably the most impacted at the time the school releases. If you're there about 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, it's actually less of an impact than when the school lets out. We didn't rush the traffic study. The traffic study was, they did the initial traffic counts in September, and between September and probably the middle of November, we refined the traffic study. We did a very thorough analysis and with the consultant, and so it wasn't rushed at all. Did that cover it?
Yeah, I think the only other thing was.
Oh, the noticing. Yeah, there was an error in noticing. I think there was a statement made that we misnoticed it 2 or 3 times, and that is not correct. Originally, the project was going to come before the Planning Commission in August of this year, but because of the concerns raised by the community, the applicant voluntarily agreed to prepare at their expense a traffic study. Because that took about 2.5 months to prepare, we postponed the hearing until November. We never noticed the hearing. There were meetings with the community that explained that it would not go before the Planning Commission until November, and so the comment that we incorrectly noticed the public hearing is incorrect. We were originally going to be taking this to the Planning Commission on November 17th. There was an error on the placement of the, when we do a public hearing, we do 3 types of notification. We mail to everyone within a certain radius of the property, in this case 1,300 feet. We put a notice in the California newspaper, and we also post the property with a large display sign. The contractor that we use for posting these signs inadvertently posted it on the adjacent property, the Presbyterian property. Staff has taken responsibility for that. I think somebody was quoted in the paper saying that I was scapegoating the sign contractor, but we were responsible because we went out and we have a new process in place that we actually go out and check those signs. But unfortunately, after all the work that we did, we had to postpone it until tonight's hearing. The sign was reposted on the proper location, and Eric Jones, over the last 12 days, has gone out every day to check to make sure the sign has been up and hasn't been knocked down. So I think that answers that question.
Okay, was there any other commissioner discussion? Any other questions? Don, do you have some? Go ahead. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I know that we started out and hopefully we got close, kind of close to land use issues in some of the discussions. But as a 30-year resident of this community, and probably going on 12 years on this commission, I don't think I can remember an issue that raised the kind of hatred I saw today. And I'm, as a citizen, and not as a commissioner, but as a citizen, I'm somewhat ashamed and somewhat flabbergasted by the kind of rhetoric I heard. I know it has nothing to do with the issue, but I feel like I've got holes in my tongue from biting it when I'm hearing some of the things that came out today. You know, ignorance, and I don't mean the ignorance of meaning intelligence, I mean ignorance of the facts, breeds fear breeds hatred, and unfortunately I saw a lot of that today. And I hope that was just an anomaly, that that's not part of the community we live in, and I hope we don't see it again.
Mr. Harder, you're in the queue.
Ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate all of you that have been here, and as has been said before and many times and accurately, the reason we have these types of discussions is because we're in a country that allows this type of thing. You certainly are entitled to have an opinion. I would agree with Commissioner Talicio, some of the ways that those opinions have been stated tonight. I'm embarrassed about it. Again, I don't mind that you have an opposite opinion from somebody else, but you still need to be respectful, and that's something that I think some of you have done much better than some of the others have. And so we appreciate those of you that stayed behind and appreciate those of you that have been civil.
Mario?
Well, as a 22-year resident, I have to ditto what the two previous commissioners said. It was embarrassing. When we incorporated 21 years ago, we took a lot of time and effort to come up with a general plan and a building plan for this city that all residents who moved here would be appreciative of. I pat myself on the back because I think we've done a pretty damn good job. What I hear all the time when I go to other states, as far back as New York, oh, you're from Temecula. They've heard of us. It makes me feel pretty good. People come down here to visit our little community, and they end up moving here. The reasons I've heard for that is the number of schools, the number of churches, the number of parks, schools, the landscaping. I don't hear too many issues about the traffic, although we like to joke about that. But we do hear about the positives, and like I stated. So that didn't just happen by chance. That happened with city councils and staffs and commissions and volunteers in this community working hard. And we've worked hard for 21 years to develop this community. People come in here and blast it and preach the prejudice that we've heard tonight. It's not good for our community. Certainly not good for our children. And my fellow commissioner said, I certainly hope we've heard the end of this. We were given a charge tonight on this agenda item to look at this application from a land use issue. We've heard all the other rhetoric. It boils down to land use, and this project has met the conditions. In fact, it has exceeded it. We have a minimum landscape requirement of 20%. We're at 50% on this project, which is not heard of. The design elements of this building are pretty fabulous. We try to preach four-sided architecture on this commission, and it's pretty difficult to get that from applicants. This applicant did that, and it does work. It works really well. Traffic is going to mitigate itself when the improvements to Nicholas Road are done. We've been working on that for many years, and it would have happened already. A, the developer out there in Rapa hadn't done what he did, and B, the recession hadn't hit. So it will happen, and 10 years from now we'll forget that this stuff ever existed. So that said, I have not heard any substantial evidence from a land use issue behind this project. So I am going to recommend staff approval of staff recommendation on this.
All right. Mr. Kite, did you have anything to say before we finish?
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, kudos to Eric and Patrick and all the staff that worked on this project. And it's been time consuming. I think it's been thorough, and I too, and I hate to keep beating a dead horse here, but I spent 7 years on the Shasta County Planning Commission, 7 years on the Reading City Council, and now 2 years here. And I heard some of the most rude comments tonight, and it really detracts from what I think is a really pure process that we've gone through. And I heard the Constitution talked about so many times tonight. You saw democracy at its finest tonight, and government at its finest when it happens at a local level, where I think the entire community was free to come and talk tonight, and I think half of them did. And I applaud you for your perseverance and your patience and just getting through the evening. I know it's been lengthy and painful for many of you. But I agree with Mr. Garrio that